Blood trickled from Zora's split lip as she stood over Whitney's unconscious body. The cafeteria was silent. No one moved. No one expected her, the quiet black scholarship student, to fight back. But years of cruelty had finally reached their limit. What they never understood: some warriors are made by survival, not choice. Before we dive into this powerful story of bullying, resilience, and justice, tell us where you're watching from. Hit like if you've ever witnessed school injustice. Now, let's rewind. Westridge Academy gleamed with polished marble and inherited wealth. 14-year-old Zora Freeman clutched her schedule, already feeling like an outsider. She was the only black girl in her grade, the daughter of a maintenance worker, surviving on a scholarship. Eyes followed her, smiles didn't reach eyes, and teachers praised her articulate speech like it was unexpected. At lunch, she sat alone, ignored by students, and subtly mocked by staff. The social hierarchy was obvious. The Crowns, 5 rich white girls led by Whitney Caldwell, ruled with icy confidence. Whitney dismissed Zora with a glance. That night, Zora opened her late mother's worn journal. Amara Freeman had been a champion martial artist from Senegal. Since age 5, Zora had trained under her guidance, learning balance, control, and strength. She still rose at 5 a.m. to practice in their tiny apartment, unseen by anyone at school. For weeks, Zora kept her head down, maintaining top grades. Then, in the bathroom one day, Whitney struck. "Is that a wig, or did something die on your head?" she sneered, reaching for Zora's hair. Zora stepped back calmly. "Please don't touch me." Whitney smirked. "I thought they let you in for diversity." The words stung, but Zora remembered. A true warrior chooses her battles. Not today, but the bullying escalated. Whitney's campaign was calculated: ruined lockers, social isolation, whispers and stares. Zora trained harder each night, sweat mixing with silent rage. Pain is temporary. Discipline is forever. A crack appeared when Mr. Baxter paired her with Lucas Bennett, top student, Whitney's boyfriend. He greeted her kindly, with quiet respect. "I heard you had the highest entrance score," he said. Zora blinked, surprised. "Thanks," she replied softly. What neither of them knew: the war was just beginning. "Chemistry makes sense," Zora said quietly. "It follows rules, unlike people." Lucas replied with a smirk. Zora allowed a small smile. "Exactly. Their experiment was a success, earning praise from Mr. Baxter and glares from Whitney, who watched from across the room. The next day, the bullying turned brutal. A fake social media account in Zora's name posted racist memes with her photoshopped image. The posts spread fast. Students laughed. Zora reported it. Principal Whitaker leaned back with faux concern. "Westridge is colorblind," he said. "We don't see differences here. Kids will be kids." It was a dismissal. Her pain wasn't taken seriously. That same week, Zora's carefully written essay on Beloved got a C+. Ms. Peterson claimed it lacked depth, even though Whitney repeated the same points and was praised for her insight. Zora said nothing. She couldn't afford to be labeled difficult, not on a scholarship. Tuesday. In the cafeteria, Whitney accidentally knocked over Zora's project and lunch. "Oops," she said, smiling sweetly. "Didn't see you. There you blend into the shadows." Zora knelt, collecting the ruined project. Lucas appeared beside her. "That was on purpose." "I know," Zora replied calmly. "It always is." At dinner, her father noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said, not wanting to add to his worries. That evening, Zora trained behind their apartment with new intensity. Every strike carried the weight of her day. She turned to her mother's journal for comfort. "They will try to make you believe you are less," Amara had written. "That is the first attack. If you believe them, they've already won." Zora rose early the next morning, focused and deliberate. Her training wasn't just tradition, it was protection. Her mother's teachings became armor. The warrior waits. The warrior chooses the right moment. But the warrior never backs down when justice is at stake. That moment was coming. Her refuge was an abandoned warehouse, transformed into a private training space using the inheritance her mother had left for martial arts. There, she became focused, unbreakable. "You're still telegraphing from the left," came a voice. Mr. Wallace, the elderly black security guard, stepped in. A former boxer, he had found Zora training months ago and became her quiet mentor. "My mom used to tie my right arm back to fix that," Zora said. Amara was thorough. He smiled. "She taught at the community center when she came here. Most beautiful fighter I ever saw, like water turning to steel." Tears welled in Zora's eyes. Few people had ever known her mother like that. "She gave it up when she had you," Wallace continued. "But she never lost the fire." He pointed at the heavy bag. "Again. This time, watch that shoulder." Back at school, Mr. Jackson assigned a family heritage project. While others complained, Zora felt proud. For once, her background was an asset. When it was her turn to present, she stood tall and began sharing the rich history of Senegalese martial arts. Zora Freeman was done hiding. Zora stood proudly in front of the class, holding her mother's ceremonial wrestling sash. "Lamb isn't just a sport," she explained. "It's history, it's resistance, it's legacy." For once, a few students listened, curiosity replacing their usual silence. Then Jessica muttered, "As if she's even been to Africa. Probably copied it off Wikipedia." Laughter followed. Ms. Peterson looked up from her grading. "That was creative, Zora. Are you sure this is all your own work?" The implications stung, but before Zora could speak, Lucas cut in. "Why wouldn't it be? She has the highest GPA in class." His defense drew shocked silence. Even Miss Peterson's voice wavered. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett, but I can assess consistency myself." From across the room, Whitney's glare at Lucas was icy. Later in gym, a volleyball net pole tipped toward a student. Zora caught it one-handed without thinking. Her strength startled everyone, especially Whitney. After class, Whitney cornered her. "Where'd you learn that?" "Steroids." Zora stayed calm. "I just work out." But she knew Whitney didn't believe her. That night, Zora couldn't sleep. Her dreams were restless, chased by shadows, surrounded by judgment. The next morning, her father found her mother's old gold medal. "She wanted you to know where you came from," he said, placing it in her hand. "She'd be proud." What they didn't know, Whitney had followed Zora to her secret training spot. Hidden outside the abandoned warehouse, she filmed everything: Zora's strength, her focus, her skill. The footage was undeniable. The next morning, a video went viral at Westridge. It showed Zora training. The caption read, "Ghetto scholarship girl thinks she's the next Black Panther," with hashtags like #FakeAfrican and #ThugLife. It spread like wildfire. Zora's secret was out and Whitney was just getting started. Zora shifted her weight, using a lamb technique to break Jessica's grip, send Megan stumbling, and sweep Whitney off balance. In 5 seconds, all 4 girls were on the floor, unharmed, but stunned. No punches thrown, no bruises, just precision. Zora leaned close to Whitney. "Don't ever threaten me again. You have no idea what I'm capable of." By the end of the day, the story had spread. Some claimed Zora attacked unprovoked. Others whispered she moved like a superhero. The truth didn't matter, only the narrative. The next morning, Principal Whitaker didn't hide his disappointment. "Violence isn't tolerated here." "They had scissors. They cornered me," Zora said. "Witnesses disagree." "And there are no cameras in the bathroom," he replied. "Another incident, and your scholarship's at risk." Zora left, knowing exactly what that meant. The system was doing what it always did, protecting privilege. punishing resistance. That weekend, Mr. Wallace introduced her to his granddaughter, Deja, who went to a public school across town. Their schools were worlds apart. Westridge, rich and white. Deja's diverse and open. Wait, Deja said after hearing the story. They tried to cut your hair, and you got in trouble. That's racist. For the first time, Zora felt seen. When Deja asked to learn lamb, Zora taught her it felt good, liberating, to share that part of herself. Monday morning, Zora was called to the office again. This time, Robert Caldwell Whitney's powerful father was waiting. My daughter feels threatened, he said. We're recommending probation. One more issue, and your scholarship is gone. Zora took a breath. The old her would have stayed quiet, but something had changed. With all due respect, she said, I've been racially harassed since day one. Vandalized, slandered, accused of cheating, threatened. Do you have proof? Caldwell asked coldly. Zora met his gaze and pulled out her phone. I do. Photos, screenshots, audio, dates, names. Evidence. Whitaker and Caldwell were stunned, not because they didn't know, but because she dared to challenge them. And for the first time, Zora realized she wasn't powerless. Zora played the bathroom audio. Whitney's voice rang out clearly. Maybe we should give you a tribal haircut. Hold her. Principal Whitaker shifted uncomfortably. Robert Caldwell's face tightened. These could be taken out of context, he said. Teenage girls argue all the time. Racism isn't an argument, Zora replied sharply. And I'm not the only one. Other minority students are documenting their experiences too. We're thinking of going to the full school board or the press. It was a bluff, but she said it with conviction. Caldwell's expression darkened. That would be unfortunate, especially for scholarship students whose futures depend on Westridge's goodwill. My father's worked 3 jobs to support me, Zora replied. He's been your maintenance supervisor for 5 years. Retaliate against him, and I'll pursue wrongful termination. Silence. She had struck a nerve. Caldwell stood. We seem to be at an impasse. Principal Whitaker handled this appropriately. When he left, Whitaker sighed. The Caldwells have power. Don't make this harder. I just want to be treated fairly, Zora said. You're not like other students, he muttered. The mask slipped later that day. An announcement. Westridge's academic excellence competition was open. The winner would earn a summer internship at Caldwell Industries and a college recommendation from Robert Caldwell himself. Zora saw her opportunity, something based on merit, not privilege. That evening, she trained with Deja, who encouraged her to document everything. My cousin's in pre-law, Deja said. Evidence wins cases. Mr. Wallace added, your mother knew. It's not just about fighting. It's about knowing your opponent, what they value, what they fear. Whitney values status and her dad's approval, Zora said. Then, that's your angle, Wallace replied. Not to destroy Herb, to neutralize the threat. Zora's competition project combined African martial arts with biomechanics, how traditional movement maximized force with minimal energy. Mr. Baxter supported her fully. Lucas became a key ally, helping with the data modeling. This is brilliant, he said one day. The judges will be impressed. If they're fair, Zora replied. They are. Dr. Ramon from MIT is the lead judge. She can't be influenced, as they worked. Lucas admitted doubts about Whitney. We've been together for years, but now, I don't know who she really is. Pressure reveals people, Zora said. My mom used to say the most important battles are won before they begin through strategy and timing. But Whitney had been watching Anne 3 days before the deadline. Zora found her lab sabotaged, samples gone, data corrupted, setup destroyed. Security cameras had just happened to malfunction. Zora knew who was behind it. But what hurt more was realizing only she and Lucas had known the details. Had he told Whitney? When confronted, Lucas looked crushed. I mentioned your project. I didn't think but the damage was done. She'd do something like this, Lucas admitted, guilt written all over his face. I'm sorry, Zora. Let me help you rebuild. Why should I trust you? Zora shot back, her anger finally surfacing. You've known her for years. You knew what she was capable of. I thought I did, he said quietly. I was wrong. The damage was done. With the competition looming, Zora poured herself into rebuilding her colonne. Each late night fueled her resolve not to be broken by Whitney's sabotage. Meanwhile, Mr. Reynolds continued his quiet campaign undermining her answers, nitpicking flawless work. So Zora began recording him. The pattern was clear. Consistent praise for white students, criticism for her. No more doubt it was systemic bias. Then, Thursday, a dead rat in her gym bag, a racial slur tied to its tail. But this time, Zora didn't stay silent. She documented it, photographed everything, and reported it. Principal Whitaker gave the usual non-committal response, vague concern, quiet blame. That evening her father got a call from his job concerns about Zora's aggressive behavior and how it might reflect on his performance. The threat was unmistakable. Caldwell was going after her family. Zora's heart sank. Dad, this isn't about behavior. It's because I stood up to Whitney. I'm being targeted. Her father listened silently. Your mom faced the same, he said finally. They tried to disqualify her. Said her style was too dangerous different. But she didn't argue. She performed so well, they couldn't deny her without exposing themselves. His words renewed her fire. That night, Zora found a passage in her mother's journal. Study your opponent. Learn their weaknesses. Become invisible till the time to strike. Inspired, Zora played the long game. She let Whitney think she was defeated, pretended her project was beyond repair. In secret, she trained harder than ever, blending traditional lamb with modern MMA. Mr. Wallace watched proudly. You're not just copying your mother, you're becoming your own fighter. The final piece fell into place when Lucas approached her after school. She's planning something for spring formal, he warned. Some kind of public humiliation. I don't know details, but it's bad. Why? Tell me, Zora asked, still guarded. Because it's wrong, he said, and I broke up with her yesterday. Zora blinked, surprised, but said nothing. She was already preparing for what came next. Zora had no time for second-guessing. The academic competition was just days away, followed immediately by the spring formal. Whitney had escalated from cruel pranks to threats against her father's job. A cornered opponent was dangerous but predictable. Zora had prepared for this as she finalized her rebuilt project. Working through the night, a calm settled over her. The plan was in place. Now, it was time to execute. Just like her mother taught her, the formal transformed the gym into a glittering illusion of elegance. Despite Lucas's warning, Zora chose to go. She wouldn't run. She had earned her place. Her +1 beamed as they got ready. Zora wore a vibrant blue dress with Senegalese accents and her mother's pendant. Her father drove them, offering a quiet reminder, excellence is the best response. Inside, conversations halted as they entered, eyes followed, whispers spread, but Zora walked tall, shoulders back, every movement precise and intentional. Whitney watched from across the room, flanked by her usual crew, but quieter than usual. For an hour, things remained calm. Zora and Deja danced, laughed, and even drew in a few curious classmates. Then came the announcement of the formal court. Principal Whitaker read names, Whitney among them, of course. But then, unexpectedly, this year, we honor a student who's overcome great obstacles to achieve academic excellence. Please welcome, Zora Freeman. A spotlight snapped to her. Zora froze. She hadn't been nominated. Something felt wrong. Don't go, Deja whispered. It's a setup. but fleeing would confirm their narrative that she didn't belong. Head high, Zora climbed the stage. Whitney met her with a cushion holding a tiara. "In honor of your special contribution," she said sweetly. Then, in one fluid motion, Whitney flipped the cushion. After her return, Westridge felt different. Ms. Jackson, a young black English teacher, approached Zora quietly. "What happened wasn't right. Some of us are working to make sure it doesn't happen again." She handed Zora her personal email. "You're not alone anymore." But Whitney's absence left tension in the air. Rumors swirled. Her father had hired a PR firm to clean up. The fallout from the spring formal, now picked up by local media. Zora used the quiet to rebuild her competition project. Though her suspension cost her time, she had a strong foundation. Then Lucas approached her in the library, sliding over a USB drive. "Recordings," he said. "Proof Whitney planned everything, even sabotaging your project." Zora stared at him. "Why now?" "Because it was wrong, and she's not my girlfriend anymore." He also revealed that Whitney's father had threatened to pull funding if she faced real consequences. Zora wasn't surprised, but now she had evidence. Her project on the biomechanics of African martial arts was nearly complete. It fused science and heritage, everything Zora stood for. But just days before the event, Whitney returned and rejoined the competition, presenting on sustainable business, the same idea Zora once shared with Lucas. Zora didn't flinch. She remembered her mother's words. The fighter who fixates on her opponent loses sight of her own power. Then came another warning. "Ms. Jackson called. Whitney's planning to accuse you of plagiarism. Be careful." Zora's stomach sank, but she stayed focused. Desperate opponents were dangerous but predictable. That night, Zora found a letter in her mother's journal, one she hadn't seen before. "Our martial tradition isn't about violence, about justice. It's for protecting others, creating balance. This is your legacy." The words grounded her. Her fight at Westridge wasn't just for grades or college. It was about carrying on a legacy of resilience, dignity, and purpose. The day of the competition arrived. Judges, university reps, and even Robert Caldwell were in attendance. Zora took precautions, backups of everything. Nothing left unattended as she stepped into the transformed gymnasium, lined with student booths. She felt a calm resolve settle over her. She had already won by reclaiming her voice, honoring her mother, and refusing to be erased. She wasn't just ready for the competition. She was ready for everything that came next. The auditorium buzzed as business leaders and proud parents browsed student projects. Zora stood poised beside her booth, her nerves masked by calm focus. Her display on biomechanical efficiency in traditional African combat was visually striking, deeply researched, and personal. She had arrived early, securing everything after Ms. Jackson's warning about Whitney. Across the room, Whitney played the reformed victim, aided by her polished apology and her father's influence. Many believed her act. Zora knew better. Judging began. When Dr. Ramon approached, her eyes lit up. "Your hypothesis on energy conservation in cyclical movement is fascinating," she said. "My mother was a champion in lamb wrestling," Zora explained. "She taught me that the most powerful movements conserve energy. I wanted to measure that, scientifically." Dr. Ramon smiled. Brilliant intersection of tradition and biomechanics. Other judges engaged her sincerely for once. Her work spoke louder than prejudice. When finalists were announced, Zora wasn't surprised to hear her name. But when Whitney was named too, she tensed. It felt orchestrated. As she gathered her materials, the sabotage revealed itself. Her sensors were gone, her files corrupted. No time to prove it. No one would believe her word over Whitney's. She had two choices: withdraw or adapt. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. A warrior's strength is tested when nothing goes as planned. Zora chose to adapt. She recovered an older backup from the cloud and made bold move she'd become the demonstration herself. When called to the stage, she stood tall. Due to technical issues, I'll be presenting both the data and the physical principles myself. What? Followed stunned the room. Zora fluidly demonstrated Lamb techniques as she explained them, her body becoming the evidence, each move a lesson in force, efficiency, and discipline. Judges watched, captivated. Her presentation wasn't just science, it was storytelling, it was legacy, and it was unforgettable. The auditorium buzzed as judges and guests roamed. Zora stood at her booth.com, but alert. Her project on efficiency in African combat drew real interest. Dr. Ramon, impressed, asked what inspired her. My mother, Zora said. She taught me Lamb wrestling. I wanted to study how traditional techniques conserve energy, long before science named it. Judges lingered. For once her work was judged fairly. She wasn't surprised to be named a finalist. But when Whitney's name was called next, it felt too convenient. Minutes later, Zora discovered key components of her project missing. Her files were corrupted. Sabotaged. Whitney watched smugly. Zora could report it but had no proof. She could withdraw or adapt. Her mother's voice echoed. A true warrior adjusts when nothing goes to plan. So she adjusted. She used cloud backups and turned herself into the demonstration. On stage, she seamlessly explained and performed techniques, making her body the evidence. The audience was captivated. Applause thundered. Then Whitney presented poised and polished two sing slides Zora had created weeks ago. The plagiarism was obvious to Zora, and likely to anyone paying attention. Zora approached Dr. Ramon. Whitney used my work, she said calmly, offering time-stamped files as proof. Dr. Ramon took the evidence to the judges. From across the room, Whitney watched uneasily, then snapped. What did you say to them? She hissed. I showed them the truth, Zora replied. You don't belong here, Whitney raged. You're nothing but a diversity pick, stealing what's ours. Dr. Ramon returned just in time to hear Whitney's tirade escalation chew. Enraged, Whitney lunged. Zora sidestepped, redirecting her effortlessly. Whitney stumbled, humiliated. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Whitney unleashed a stream of racial slurs. This is what I've faced all year, Zora said quietly. My research isn't just academic, it's survival. Board members looked shaken. Even Robert Caldwell appeared cornered. He stormed over, grabbing Zora's arm. Your scholarship's done. So is your father's job. Michael Freeman stepped in. I suggest you finish that thought carefully, he said. You're threatening a minor. In public. On camera. Later. In the cafeteria. Whitney wasn't done. She confronted Zora with her clique behind her. This isn't over, she growled. I don't want to fight, Zora said. Walk away. Whitney smirked. We're done talking. The attack was chaotic, 5 girls lunging at once. Zora's response was flawless, defensive, controlled, efficient. No strikes, just neutralization. Whitney charged, missed, and crashed into a table, knocked unconscious. Zora stood over her, lip bleeding from an accidental hit. The room was dead silent. Phones recorded everything: the attack, Zora's restraint, the stunned faces. Then Zora knelt beside Whitney, checking her pulse. That image, Zora bleeding but composed, tending to the girl who had tried to destroy her, was what the world would remember. The hours after the cafeteria incident passed in a blurner's visits, admin meetings, and police interviews. Whitney had a mild concussion. Zora's split lip was cleaned and bandaged. Despite the clear video evidence showing Zora acted in self-defense, the school's response followed a familiar pattern: suspension, vague threats about her scholarship, and talk of violent tendencies. Then everything changed. Videos of Whitney's racist outburst and the attack in the cafeteria exploded online. Local news picked up the story, framing it as a case of racial injustice in elite private schools. Civil rights groups weighed in. Westridge Academy was suddenly under national scrutiny. At an emergency board meeting conspicuously, missing Robert Caldwell's year-long documentation and testimony from teachers like Miss Jackson revealed a pattern of bias and inaction. The board couldn't deny it. 4 hours later, they announced sweeping changes. Principal Whitaker was forced to resign. An independent equity review was launched, and most importantly, Zora was declared the rightful winner of the academic competition. She earned a full scholarship and a prestigious summer internship. Robert Caldwell threatened legal action till his lawyers reviewed the evidence. The family instead issued a carefully worded public apology and quietly transferred Whitney to a therapeutic boarding school. Large donations to civil rights groups followed, the price of salvaging the Caldwell name. For Zora, the victory was bittersweet. She had endured months of abuse, a physical assault, and nearly lost everything. But something powerful came from the pain. When younger students of color approached her about feeling unsafe at Westridge, she took action. With Mr. Wallace's help and the new interim principal's approval, Zora launched a self-defense and empowerment program, blending martial arts, discipline, and cultural pride. What started as a small circle became a thriving community. Breaking down Westridge's rigid social lines, Lucas offered his quiet support, using his influence to open doors. Their bond, though not romantic, was built on mutual respect. The system won't change unless people change it from within, he told her one day, but it takes both pressure and persistence. The school's hollow diversity council was rebuilt into a real force, with students, parents, and staff of color gaining meaningful representation. Ms. Jackson was appointed faculty advisor, ensuring racism would no longer go unchecked. By year's end, Westridge hadn't been completely transformed. Systemic racism doesn't vanish overnight, but real change had begun. And for the first time, students like Zora could thrive without hiding who they were. Her final demonstration wasn't just about martial arts, it was about legacy, resistance, and the power of standing tall. The end-of-year showcase marked the peak of Zora's journey, before an audience filled with university reps, community leaders, and her proud father. She performed a sequence of martial arts techniques that seamlessly blended her mother's traditional teachings with her own innovations. Her movements told a story of legacy honored, strength earned, and discipline transformed into art. Mr. Wallace watched from the wings, pride gleaming in his eyes. After the applause, a poised woman in her 50s approached. "You move exactly like your mother," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Catherine Caldwell Whitney's mother." Zora, surprised, shook her hand. "You knew my mom." Catherine smiled, wistful. "We competed in the Pan American Championships 30 years ago. She beat me in the final. It was the most technical match I ever lost." Her voice softened. A lot of people weren't ready to accept a black African champion, including me. Zora blinked, stunned. Whitney's hostility suddenly made more sense. "Does Whitney know?" "No," Catherine admitted. "Not about the match or the respect I held for your mother. I let my pride and prejudice speak louder. Maybe Whitney inherited more of that than I realized." It wasn't an excuse, but it gave Zora a deeper understanding of the pain that shaped their conflict. As summer approached, Zora reflected on how far she'd come. She'd entered Westridge as an outsider, expected only to endure, but she hadn't just survived, she'd reshaped the school itself. What began as self-preservation had grown into leadership and advocacy, laying a path for others to follow. One journal entry from her mother stood out. "The highest achievement in martial arts isn't defeating an enemy, it's turning conflict into harmony. Not by surrender, but by strength that uplifts everyone it touches." Now, as Zora trained a young girl named Kira in basic self-defense, she repeated those same lessons. Watching confidence spark in Kira's eyes, she felt something bigger than victory. She felt the power of legacy continuing. Zora Freeman had entered Westridge a scholarship, student underestimated by nearly everyone. She left it as a mentor, a changemaker, and a warrior, not because she fought, but because she built a world where others wouldn't have to. In a world where systems often silence marginalized voices, Zora's story reminds us that while excellence is a powerful response to prejudice, it's not enough on its own. True transformation comes from building alliances and challenging injustice both within and beyond the system. Zora's strength wasn't just her talent, it was her ability to unite others who saw the truth. She showed that our cultural heritage isn't something to hide, but a well of wisdom and resilience that can guide us through today's struggles. Her journey proves the highest form of victory isn't just defeating your enemies, it's changing the environment so future generations don't have to fight the same battles. Zora teaches us that real resilience isn't just survival, it's shaping a better world through strategic action. Calm strength and unwavering dignity. What in your life could benefit from Zora's approach? Have you ever faced injustice and responded with strength and grace? Comment below with your story of resilience or change. If Zora's journey moved you, like this video so others can discover it. Subscribe for more stories of courage, heritage, and transformation, and share this with someone who needs to know your strength, when focused and disciplined, can become a force for lasting justice. Thanks for joining us. May you find balance, purpose, and power in your own story.